Welcome to the Catskills. I am taking a quick hike into Verneuil Falls, the scene of my very first ever backpacking trip. Really wish I had my poles. Well, that was fun. So I probably was between 9 and 11 or 12. And my mother told my dad to take me into the woods and to go away for a couple of days. And we packed up our stuff, including, if I remember correctly, things like an axe. And we came into this spot to camp, which you cannot do anymore. And it was supposed to be only a mile hike into the campsite. And as a little kid, I didn't make it. My dad ended up carrying most of the stuff, which is most of what I remember. And we cowboy camped for a night or two, and then headed back out. So in 2018, big fast forward here, I got the flu and ended up sick on the couch for a week. I don't know how it happened, but I ended up going down the YouTube rabbit hole, as one does, and I found Darwin and Dixie. And they were talking about backpacking. And what I remember from that first backpacking trip with my dad was that things were heavy. And here they were talking about going out for days on end with under 30 pounds. And I thought to myself, wow, even with my back injuries, I could carry 20 pounds. I could probably even carry 30 pounds. And that's where it all began. And since then, I hiked half of New Hampshire's 52 with a V list, about 13 or 14 of the 4,000 footers. I've done a couple of days of backpacking in Colorado and the Smokies, and I thru hiked Monadnock Sunapee Greenway, and all of that makes me think that maybe it's time to do the Appalachian Trail. So that's what I plan to do in 2023. I intend to thru hike the Appalachian Trail. 45 years. Welcome to my car. I am about to get on the Kankamangas Highway. I have spent the last 24 hours up here doing a little bit of hiking and testing out some gear, which I might talk about in another video because it's been really interesting getting ready for this thru hike. But for now, I wanted to talk about some of the typical questions that people answer when they're doing the AT and they're putting stuff on YouTube. So why on earth am I doing this in the first place? People keep asking me that, and needless to say, it's a good question. One of the things that I've said is that I really want to do something that nobody can take away from me. I have run a small business, a yoga studio, for over a decade now, and to make a really long story short, COVID basically made it necessary for me to shut down the brick and mortar aspect of it, and I've been doing online since then, and the business has declined, and it's been very difficult. It was my baby. It was the thing I put my blood, sweat, and tears into for a long time, and there are people that are still doing things with me, but it's not the same, and that's been tough to deal with. And I think thru hike is something that if I make it to Katahdin, that's always going to be the case, and that's something that's going to stick with me. I've had an interest in the Appalachian Trail for a long time. I'm pretty sure I've known about the AT since I was a pretty small kid. I grew up in an area where it was not terribly far away. I grew up in the mid-Hudson Valley area of New York, which is around about the Kingston-Poughkeepsie area. So where the AT goes through New York really wasn't very far away. And it's just something I've always known about, and certainly who wouldn't be fascinated by the idea of walking from Georgia to Maine? I've had a series of spinal issues in my life. I herniated a disc in my low back in 2014, couldn't walk for 3 weeks, and really didn't think like carrying a backpack was something I'd ever be able to do. But then I watched these videos and realized that the technology had changed greatly since the last time I had gone backpacking, which was when I was a kid with my dad. I recently had my dad pull out the backpack that we used on that trip, and I'm going to try to insert a picture of it here because it is absolutely hilarious compared to what we're using these days. So the technology had changed so much that they were talking about 20-pound base weights, and I thought to myself, well, I just should be able to do that. And that started the snowball effect and the gear accumulation and testing and trying, and it's just something I really love, this idea of being able to throw everything you need on your back and walk off into the woods for a few days. And the Appalachian Trail, from everything that I've seen and heard and read and watched and experienced myself, is that plus an incredible community of people and an amazing set of experiences that I want to have. I am going to be 45 years old the day I start, and as I've been saying to people, if I'm real lucky, I'm about halfway through this thing we call life, And it's time to figure out what I'm going to do now. And obviously what I'm going to do right now is go hike the AT very soon. But I want to take some time to really consider what it is that I want my life to look like in the next 45 years or so. The number one question I get asked after saying that I'm going to do this is, are you going alone? And the answer is yes. My husband is coming to Georgia with me. He's going to start with me. We're going to do the approach trail together, and then he's going to spend the first night on trail with me, and then after that I'm on my own. I think anybody who knows anything about the AT these days also knows that I don't expect to actually be alone too much. I plan to tent at shelters the majority of time, so I expect that I will be meeting lots of people, and that's really one of the things I'm looking forward to the most, is meeting some people that are interested in the same thing I'm interested in. My family is very supportive of what I'm doing, while also having concerns that I think are perfectly normal. In some ways, this hike was my husband's idea. He was kind of like, why don't you just go do this thing and get it out of your system? So that's what I'm doing. He's going to be coordinating things from home and taking care of stuff at home, and that's a big job, and I appreciate very much that he's making it possible for me to do this. My mom and dad, I think, are supportive and interested in what I'm doing, and also, as any parent would be, slightly frightened, which I think also comes from some aspect of not understanding what's happening. Somebody driving on the wrong side of the road right now is not helping. Okay. My husband said to me the other day that the thing he's most worried about is the logistical aspects that he's going to be handling. He has no worries about my abilities to go out there and do this thing. So that's encouraging. I have a lot of friends and relatives that are certainly cheering me on as well, and that's a really nice thing. I was, in fact, just up here in the White Mountains area, camping out in a friend's backyard. Shout out to Sumac, thank you. Testing out cold weather gear and that sort of stuff. Things I'm worried about. Being too cold at night is definitely high on my list right now. That's part of the reason the last 2 weeks, when I've had the opportunity, I've gone to sleep outside, and unfortunately, it hasn't gone very well. Waking up shivering is not a fun thing. So I'm still working on that aspect of things. Ticks are another concern. I'm fairly certain I had Lyme disease when I was a kid. I don't want it again, but I've also taken precautions in that I have had my clothing treated by a company called Insect Shield, which I cannot recommend highly enough. I've done that with my hiking clothing for the last couple of years, and the difference between what I've had to do to deal with bugs versus other people that I've hiked with that have not used that company has been very noticeable. Snakes are not my favorite thing. The rattlesnake situation in Pennsylvania and beyond is a bit of a concern for me. I also think it's generally the same thing as it is with bears and whatever else in the woods. Really, they want nothing to do with you. My biggest concern is that I'm gonna be climbing up some boulder and there's gonna be one at the top and neither one of us is gonna know the other is coming, and that's gonna get interesting. But will tell. Another concern for me is food. I am a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for 12 or 13 years at this point. I am not planning to change that because of this hike. So I've been doing a lot of preparing my own backpack meals to have sent in resupply boxes. That's going to be coordinated between my mother and my husband. And that's been a real challenge in the last several weeks. I hope I'm not being complacent in not being a little more worried about the actual hiking. I do live in New Hampshire. I have hiked a lot in the Whites. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of backpacking in the last year, really. Life has been interesting in terms of Kat needed surgery when I was planning to do the long trail, and last year we had a trip to Alaska planned, and we were trying to scrape together money for that, and it's just been a lot of different things. So I feel like every time I set up my stuff, and I've gotten new things in the last several months, so I'm not as familiar with that, so it makes me feel like I'm a newbie and I've never done this before, and I have done this before. I've done a few days on the Colorado Trail in the past. My husband and I did that in 2019, I believe it was. I thru hiked a trail here in New Hampshire called Monadnock Sunapee Greenway. I've done plenty of little overnight weekend trip type things. So I'm not entirely inexperienced, but every time I pull out the stuff, it feels awkward, and I think some of it is just because of the new things that I'm dealing with. I'm going to get a lot of experience pretty soon, aren't I? So in terms of preparations, I have mostly been focused on the food thing and scraping together the last bit of gear and the money to buy it and the money to put away to actually do this hike. So I've been working a full-time job at a grocery store. I've been teaching yoga like I normally do, and that hasn't left a lot of time for hiking, unfortunately. And again, that's one of those things that I'm hoping I'm not going to regret later. I haven't done as much hiking as I would like, but when I do hike around here, I don't know if you can kind of see behind me, but it's full-on winter here. It's been a really strange winter though, but when I'm carrying my winter day pack with all of my gear, it's in the 25, 26, 27, even 28 pound range, depending on food and water and stuff like that. So I'm used to carrying a fairly heavy pack when I do go out. My current setup, my pack fully loaded with all of my stuff, 4 days of food, 2 liters of water, I'm looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 pounds, which with winter gear I think is pretty decent. These videos that I'm going to be doing, I don't expect to be doing a video every single day. I think that might be more than I just want to be doing, so definitely every week or so, maybe every couple of days. I'm still shaking out how to do all this on my phone, because I am not going to bring another camera. I'm just going to do it on my phone. I really hope that these videos and photographs that I'll be taking and posting along the way, both on YouTube and Instagram, will be a good way of just keeping some kind of record of what it is that I'm doing and feeling and seeing and experiencing as I go through the trail. I think I mentioned that I am driving on the Kancamagus Highway right now. I'm heading from Conway area over to the Lincoln area, and I don't think you're getting much of a view out of the back windows there, but I just had to come up here and take this drive and kind of say a little farewell to the whites for now. I'm definitely gonna miss hiking here because it is one of the things that I love, and it's one of the things that has spurred me on to do what I'm about to take on, for sure. Working on the various lists up here and just hiking in New Hampshire has really meant a lot for me and brought some really wonderful people into my life in the last couple of years. It's crazy to think too. I went to an overlook where I could see Mount Washington and Conway area today, and the next time I see that mountain, I'm going to be walking over it, which I've done before, but this is definitely going to be different. So, with less than 2 weeks to go until I fly out of here, I just had to get back up here and say a little goodbye to this area and a little thank you to this area, because it's been so instrumental in bringing me to this point. So that's my story for now. I've got less than 2 weeks again until I fly down to Georgia. We'll be spending a couple of days down there before we start, and then doing the approach trail and getting me on my way. I hope that you will encourage me as I go, and I hope that sharing my story is also helpful to others that may be considering this in the future, or maybe just get to understand that what you think is possible right now might be very different than what's possible in the future. I never could have expected in 2014, when I couldn't walk, that I would even be able to contemplate doing something like this. It's pretty incredible where life can take you. So thanks for watching, and I might post another video or two before I go. I will definitely be delaying my posts once I get on trail. I'm planning to do at least a week or two delay with that, so more to come. Thanks for watching.